I can still vote that way.
Okay. No, maybe we can have music shut off.
It's on?
No.
Okay. All right, let me tell
Tony,
you.
can you?
Okay. What we're doing is part of the oral history project. I'm Carol Pohl from the Social Science Department, and we're interviewing 3 people, and they will introduce themselves. Zaera and Aaron Schorr. Herb Wood will join us later, and we're capturing the history of the role of computers at FIT. It's being done on December 8th, 1994 in Quick Response Lab. Okay, so Lou, if you introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Lou Zaera. I teach economics and social science department. And even though my background is originally in engineering, I was away from engineering for a long time, and somehow I got involved in computers again. I'm interested in economics, however. My involvement with computers here at FIT dates back from my chairman's day as a person interested in doing minutes and reports and so on. So I thought that a word processor would be a good idea. And at that time, we did not have PCs in the college, but there was a fax. I think it was in 1140, or possibly even earlier, machine down in the computer center. I guess it was room C100 or whatever it was called in those days. So we were doing word processing on the DEC system. There were all kinds of problems with the system. It would go down periodically. I would have a report halfway prepared, and they would lose it. I would upgrade a report, and it would be the machine would break, and they would restore from tapes that were 2 months old. So there were all kinds of problems with the word processing as it was then. I'm going back now 12 years, possibly longer than that. The liberal arts began to get involved with computers and computer labs, and the person that was very much involved with this was Richard Harrigan of the Math and Science Department. We bought a lab of apples. We bought apples for our liberal arts lab, and what we basically did with that was to teach MA 151, which is Introduction to the Computers. They were doing some programming with it, basic and displays and so on. And also we started using word processing. The English department reluctantly came in at first, now much more so, to do word processing on the computer. The apples lasted 4 or 5 years. We then switched to the PC. There was a major discussion as to whether we wanted to continue with the Apple side of the house or that we were going to switch over to the PC. We decided to go over to the PC side of the house. We had one lab for all of the liberal arts, the so-called liberal arts lab. We got moved a few times. We used to live by where the cash machine is in the C lobby. There's a little cafeteria there. Now that used to be our lab. When they were changing that for student use and for the cash machine that needed more space, we were moved over to the E building, ground floor of the E building. Way back, buried in one of those corridors in the ground floor of the E building. And it was still the liberal arts lab. Mostly it was run by the technician, Joe Appleby, and some part-time people. I forgot Mary, at any rate, increasingly the demands for the lab grew as more English classes required the use of the lab for EN 121. The Educational Skills Department wanted it. Economics began to want it for student work. So increasingly the room became way overstressed, and we were looking around for alternatives to what we were going to do. Fortunately, the school realized that we needed to do something about computing in the college. It was all diverse, and this is where Aaron Schorr comes in, because the academic computer facilities got centralized under his department. So Aaron, take it away.
My name is Aaron Schorr. I'm a professor in manufacturing management. I was the college's first academic computer coordinator, and now I'm the quick response coordinator for this facility. My experience with computers at FIT goes back to key punch cards when I was here as a student, and one of the only courses being offered actually was given by Sid Buckman in the management department. We used key punch cards with a computer here at the college. and we also did a little bit of basic programming. Upon coming back to FIT as a part-time instructor in the early 80s, we were taking a look at working then still off the mainframe, but then we converted to PCs and put in first PC labs for business and technology students. We've then upgraded several times over the course of the next several years to where we're now looking at working in network environments, which hopefully we'll have online by next fall. As far as academic
Explain the network environments that you're using.
network environments, is the classrooms right now as they're constituted, each workstation stands on its own. In a networked environment, they're cabled together to a server, and we can have a lot more flexibility as to what kinds of programs we run, as well as control viruses and machine setups and things to help facilitate moving between one classroom and another. As we get more and more classes online, you don't have the opportunity to go in and do maintenance between classes. So my class ends up in management, Lou's comes in economics. They should be able to go and just start into their programs without having to clean up what happened in the last class period. So that hopefully will alleviate some of the problems there. When we first took a look at academic computing, I was asked to join a group called ELF several years ago in about 1988.
Electronic learning facility.
Electronic learning facility. It was part of the Teaching Institute. It was Ron Ludman from Art and Design, Richard Harrigan, myself, headed up by Julie Pinero.
I did one semester of that, 1 year of that.
Right. You came in when Richard Harrigan went on sabbatical. Lou was in on it, and then when I left it, Mike Silverstein from our area went on to ELF. And the object of it was to try and introduce faculty from around the college to computer technology, with the idea that if we could go ahead and instill some kind of energy into the faculty, and they could see some of the different things that could be done, that we would start seeing some of this technology introduced into the course materials. And we did have some people who took advantage of it, not as many as we thought. But it also turned out about that same time that we got a phone call from the state that said, if you had a couple of $1 million, what would you do with it? Because we're not going to give you a 10-story technology building, so what else could you come up with? And we were asked within about 72 hours to have a floor plan for basically what's now the second floor of the C building. And we did. There was a lot of discussion that took place, and we came up with some suggested layouts for what to do. And
Could you explain again what's on the second floor of the C building?
the second floor of the C building now is the CAD/COM facility. And what happened was the discussion originally centered around academic computing being just this second floor. And what happened was they started talking about, well, if we bring the computer graphics department down from the third floor to the second floor, we could move the liberal arts people back from the library into the main building. And I said, well, if you're going to do that, why don't you just think in terms of a technology center and think in terms of the whole college and what other moves that we can make to try and get some more mileage out of the whole situation. So Marvin Feldman at the time said quite bluntly, if you can do it all and it not cost any additional funds from operations, let me see a plan. So I went about figuring out how we could go ahead and coordinate moving all the different facilities, personnel, budgets, etc., into academic computing, where we were looking at it from a college-wide perspective. The reason I was trying to advocate it was looking ahead, realizing the space crunch we had, realizing the dollars crunch we were going to have, as well as our staff. We had staff here at the college who'd never even met each other, who were working in computer labs that didn't even know the other labs existed. So one of the first things we did in consolidation was begin cross-training, so that people who worked in one lab may have worked on a Macintosh platform could see what was going on the PC platforms here in the college and vice versa. And one of the most amazing things that I'll always remember is we were looking at some of the two-dimensional and three-dimensional programs, and one of the technicians said, "Oh, we can do that," and went and took the other group and said, "Come on," and ran into the other room and said, "Look at this software. And the menu that you have on the top of your screen, we have at the bottom of our screen." And they started comparing software, and that's exactly what we wanted to have happen. So over the course of the next couple of years, we were able to open up more classrooms. We went from 8 classrooms to 18 with the same personnel that were involved. We had more open lab hours than we ever had available, less conflicts of schedule. We had more instructors in English and ed skills and other areas able to use more facilities, because we said, well, let's not just use the one classroom, we can use multiple classrooms. And we tried to develop new labs that had more flexibility in them, where they weren't just special purpose, but we could buy the hardware to go ahead and allow us to be more flexible as to what we did. We also did the same thing over in the Mac side and started whole new majors coming into the computer era. We added photography. We added new courses in fashion illustration. They changed their major around. Courses in fashion design. We were able to run courses in advertising design that hadn't been run. Able to add in toy design labs into the facility. Interior design added the second course. Now the fashion buying and merchandising major, every student first semester takes a introduction to computer course. They never had exposure to computers in their associate degree program. So there's much higher utilization of everything. When we first started in the open labs in B&T, there were 400 students a semester using the lab. Last time I was up there, we had 3,500 to 4,000 students a month using the labs coming in. So there's been tremendous increases as far as utilization. Students are coming in with an expectation that they will use the computer, not can we or might we, or they understand that it's going to be part of their life. So those that are computer phobic, and we still have a large number of them, are coming into the facility now and slowly being introduced to what a computer is, how to use it, and where do we go from here. One of the conversations that we have in this facility is, as they look at all the different commercial software that's available and that applies to their majors, we discuss, what are the limits? And basically they're discovering that the only limit is inside their mind. That as far as the technology is concerned, it already exists for them to be able to create anything. And we're talking about the computer as a creative tool, not just a fact giver or a recorder, but that they can use it to be extremely creative and create new things using technology in a much faster way than they could before. So we're trying to get the focus in that now it's a tool, just like pen and paper, just like any other devices that they've used in the past, the S-curve, the T-square, this is just another tool in their arsenal to go ahead and help them better prepare materials and open up a resource gate to a lot of new things. Lou is working on the internet, and as more of us become aware of what is available through the internet and how to do global linkages, we have to look at, in our business side, we already know we're working in a global economy and global marketplaces, and we're working on product development that's international in scope. So how do we combine the tools together? And maybe, one of the things that I'm looking at is, how can we possibly know it all? We can't. And I have a problem with, there's about 17 different commercial packages that I use in this area also. And the equivalent of running a $40 million vertically integrated company from retail all the way down to raw materials. Well, maybe I can't ever get out and learn the internet the way it should be learned. So maybe for that segment, I'm going to have to call upon Lou to come into my classes and go ahead and explain to them how the internet works, how to do the access. Those are the kinds of things that we're going to have to learn as teachers. What are our limits? What can we know? Where do we have to go ahead and combine talents? And actually on the outside of the classroom have resources, and then we bring in other resources, personnel, or other people that we need in order to go ahead and expose the students to as many of the different tools as we feel that we possibly can that they might be able to absorb at any given time. So,
Can we backtrack a little?
Sure.
To your beginning, you said you were an FIT student. What year was that? And
I was here.
Key punch and computers then.
I was here from 1971 to 73. Graduated from the at that time it was called Management Engineering Technology. It's now gone through several name changes. Now it's called Manufacturing Management. At the time we were Manufacturing Engineering.
And you were then using the key punches. That
Key
was
punch
the
cards.
Throughout then and now, what has been the role of industry in shaping what you've done here?
I'm intimately involved in industry. Everything I do has industry advisors. This center here has a combination of about 36 different vendors to the industry, 7 primary that act as advisors. And then I also involved here, after we got the initial technology set up, we then expanded our advisory group to also include prominent retailers and manufacturers. So whenever we do something here, or I do something here, it's not just my thinking, it's pulling in the best thoughts that I can from people like Symbol Technologies, Monarch Marketing Systems, Gerber, Garment Technology. Then we have people like Saks, Bloomingdale's, Jamesway, Caldor, Donna Karen Company, Liz Claiborne, Polo. These people come in and we meet together and we discuss what's happening as far as business is concerned, what's happening from a technology point of view, what's happening from a social perspective, how we can best integrate these things for the students. And that is one of the reasons why when I moved down from academic computing to here, when I went to the dean and asked her if we could maintain this facility as a quick response facility, I said, we have to give a reason for a business and technology student to come to FIT. To come here just for lecture courses, they can get those other places. What they can't get is this integrated facility where they can study all the aspects of business as a hands-on library as they're going through getting their degree. So when they graduate, they can have the expertise to actually go into a company and say, I know how to work on PDM, I know how CAD/CAM works, I know how electronic catalogs work, I know all about Sterling, Geisco, QRS, and be able to go in and compare their resume against somebody who went somewhere else and says, no, got to take the FIT person. That's what we want to do.
Have you reached out to industry, or has industry also come to you? in terms of providing funding for some of this?
Well, the funding, I'm the big solicitor, I guess. I convinced them that it's in their best interest to be here, to donate, and to be involved. So we have approximately, this year alone, received probably about $750,000 worth of donations as far as permanent loans or gifts to the center as far as software and licenses and other kinds of things are concerned. And as these things change, like you can see there's some boxes in the background there. This equipment that's here is last year's model. So last year's model have now been sold, and next year's model will be coming in. So we're constantly turning technology over. The retail computers, we started off with the PCs, and at the present time there's an AS400 mini computer that's being loaded with the retail system that will be down here within a couple of weeks. So this place, as our advisors say every time they come here, yeah, I was here a month ago, but it's not the same place. So every time you come down, just like in the stores, when you go to buy something and the rack should be changing every couple of weeks, this place must be changing on a constant basis in order to keep up with where things are going. So I tell the students as they're going through the degree, this is a library. You know, the things coming in and going out are going to be changing constantly. You have to keep coming back. You have to keep staying up to date. We have a cutter over on the other side that was just sold also by Gerber. We will have a new cutter coming in to take its place. So the technology is constantly changing. The hard part about that, of course, is that means I also have to keep upgrading and updating and keeping the faculty up to date, things of that nature. So that does put a lot of stress and strain on life. But it's essential if we are going to be an educational institution and lead instead of, be in a position where we're following. And right now, this facility is leading, which is kind of nice.
Can you mention key people elsewhere, also in the school or industry, that have kind of patrons for the computer program generally, other than people you've mentioned?
Well, one of the big drivers here at the college was Jean Ellen Giblin. Without her support, I think Marvin possibly might have even padlocked the doors because of the budget situation in academic computing before we ever had a chance to get started. Jean Ellen had the confidence that it could be done and gave us the opportunity to go ahead and do it and work with us to get it moving. So I think she was a prime pusher to make sure that technology did come aboard and get put into the curriculum around the college. Also, in just structuring the whole thing, where the coordinator of academic computing reported directly to her, allowed us to go and move things in a much faster track than we would have had to going through several layers or committees or things of that nature. So that worked out extremely well. And she was a big reason why we were able to move as fast as we were able to move. Pretty much gave me a much freer hand to go and do the negotiating with the vendors, get things in.
Vendors, to be a little more specific.
Vendors are hardware vendors and also software. A lot of times you go out to buy something, and when you look at the list price of something, you say, well, it's going to cost this amount of money. But when you find that there's another person that you can call within the organization and start negotiating licenses, and okay, yes, the dealer price is such, but can we get a special educational price because FIT has this center, and we were able to negotiate many different agreements that way.
Some people actually gave us stuff like microdynamics.
Yeah, microdynamics I talked into
CBI.
basically a situation where they gave us all their software for free.
And they keep upgrading as soon as something new comes up for us.
With Gerber, we had a situation where we ended up getting a room equipped at a substantial discount that it's not given anyplace else. And that was just straight negotiations. Working with the people directly and having them understand what we do.
How do you sell it? What are you saying about FIT that's about the nature of the students that
Well, it's basically, the understanding that companies want to go ahead and hire trained people. And if we can provide a pool of trained people, then it makes it easier for the vendor to turn around and say, look, you want to buy our software, you're located in New York City or wherever, here's a group of people who are working with these tools already. So here's a pool of trained people that maybe they're not skilled, but they have core competency. So you can take the core competency and develop it as opposed to starting from scratch. And the companies are extremely interested in that. So it helps them sell systems at the same time as it helps our kids have jobs, and it works around. The other thing that we try to do is be multi-vendor, where students going through the degree program, where possible, work on multiple platforms and or multiple software. We were just having a discussion the other day about everybody going to this special program with Lotus, with Quattro Pro and WordPerfect, etc. And I told Herb Wood, why don't we look at it differently? Why don't we have that in the math department, and why don't we have the Microsoft Office in the business and technology side, so when the kids take Introduction to Computers and B&T, they're exposed to one set of software. When they go and take the MA 151, which is a different perspective from the math department, then they're using another set of tools. And you know what? When they get out of here, they understand that there's a lot of similarity between one and the other, and they don't have that computer phobia. They're not afraid of switching software, which a lot of people are. They're afraid that if they learn one, that it's not transferable to another. What we want to try and do is, as they go through each of the different programs, let them go cross-platform. Let them go cross-software if we can, but not go crazy and have 17 different ones. A couple of different ones. We do the same thing in fashion design, where we have them working on a couple of different design programs as they're going through, so that you never know what a person's going to work on, but they have to understand that they can do it, and they can learn multiple systems, and there is transference of knowledge and information. So that's what we're trying to accomplish as they go through the programs.
How has the state played a role? You mentioned the state gave some seed money, really, what it sounds like, just seed money.
Well, through the Dormitory Authority, we were able to do the second floor extension, also the first floor where admissions and registrar is.
In terms of computers, do the SUNY system provide?
So we're an interesting problem. FIT is a community college. The State University system has a program called SCAT, which does provide money for computers for state-operated colleges.
Students pay a fee for that.
It comes out of it's for 4-year institutions, and they're reimbursed, and they get X amount of dollars per FTE on campus. We are not eligible for that. The conversation is, can we go ahead and do a similar type program for community colleges? The community colleges, of course, have been pushing that. As far as I know, nothing has changed on that yet. But there is a stronger and stronger push for help at the community college level in that same regard.
But we get capital monies, and we spend a couple $1 million capital.
Yeah, county chargebacks and things of that nature.
So we spend a lot of money on computer equipment around school.
Absolutely.
could you describe the students, how they've changed? You know, you came in 1971. Lou, how long have you been here?
I started basically around 1970, so part-time, same way.
If you think about the students, were they like then that were involved in? I mean, you were one of the people then as a student, and who are the students now? I'm a sociologist, so what's the background of it?
Well, I remember there was a Vietnam War, and Kent State had just happened, and there was protests, and smoking in the hall was marijuana. That was the big deal. Now they smoke cigarettes, or not even that anymore. I guess they go outside the campus. So different times, and certainly there was very little computer involvement. Now in my alma mater, there was computer involvement because of engineering. That's going back.
Which was?
Carnegie Mellon in the 60s. We again, the index card, the punch cards, and that was an exercise in frustration. You would punch your cards, you'd turn them in. The guys would say, the thing will be ready at 5 a.m. And you would show up at 5 a.m. and it wouldn't be ready. And say, well, it'll be ready at 7 o'clock. You hang around, you finally get it. And it goes into half a line as a syntax error. So you have to change the card, turn it back. So that's what the computer was then. Certainly by the time that the kids started playing with computers, the situation was a lot easier here. And my involvement with them was basically in terms of word processing. And then we moved to textbook publishers giving us tutorials and exercises that went along with the textbook. So we've been using that now some 8 years. We've been using it for a long time. We've changed textbooks and we have upgraded software, and certainly my classes enjoy it. I reward them by giving them extra credit for it, but they end up performing much better in my courses as a result of the computer.
And what were the students like then? I mean, if you think about, were they mostly women? Were they mostly working in the area?
In our area, in manufacturing, majority of the students were male at the time, almost 100% male. Most of them came from family businesses, or were sponsored by companies locally and also internationally. They were older. A number of them were veterans, and so the interest, the drive, the mathematical background was much higher than students today. One of the big problems today in the computer course that I'm teaching, which is introduction, is when we get into spreadsheets, is not the software, it's not really the program, it's the math.
They don't understand the math concept.
When you do something like, what is 3/5? They don't understand that that's the same as 60%. So what you have is a lot of students getting extremely frustrated about computer technology, not because of the technology, but they don't understand some of the other tools that they should have had a good basis in before they get onto the computer and start using it. They also have a problem in relationships. Everything is direct line, point to point. They can't sit there and take one tool and combine it with another and understand. For example, we were talking about grading before. One of the first assignments I give the students is doing a weighted average grade, and we do that in the spreadsheet. Now it's already on the computer, it's on their disk. They don't understand my grading system. My grading system is a weighted average. Exactly the same thing that they got for their homework assignment is how they're graded. But they can't see the relationship between the two. And that's a little bit difficult. So we have more of that kind of a problem now than what we had in the past. They're not coming to the table as prepared. They're also not as motivated. And we have a lot more of them. Remember, in the 1970s, we had one building. It was the C building. We were more selective in who came in. as opposed to now we have a much bigger student population, and the requirements for admission, as well as the population, as well as the immigrant population and the cosmopolitan setup of New York City itself. The composition of the city is different than what it was then. So, there's many different setups. Do you come from single parent head of household versus two parent households? Are you coming from a nuclear family? Are you coming from an extended family? Where are the other supports, man? We have 20%. We have 20% population. We have groups in the foreign area where they will come in. Actually, have 3 kids taking the same program. One of them acts as the translator for the others, and it's very hard to tell that right away. But you start to learn how to watch out for the packs as they're floating through the curriculum.
Yeah, are these immigrant students or international students? Because we have international students.
Both.
When you say
Yeah,
foreign.
both. In one of my
immigrant
classes, I
population.
have 3 students from Russia this semester.
Those are immigrants. They're not
immigrants,
international
right.
students.
I have a guy from Nepal, doesn't speak English. Really does not speak English. You have him too? Okay, does not speak English. Very nice guy, but he does not speak English.
There's more of that, and it creates a problem in the classroom and stuff, and also creates conflicts between the students because you have the ones who are there, who are prepared, who want to move ahead. You have the ones who aren't, and I teach the ones who are, which frustrates some of the ones who aren't. But I tell them, you're going to get a paycheck at the end of the semester. So I can't come down to you. You have to come up to me. Whether that means extra hours that you're going to have to put in, that we're going to have to put in together. You're going to come to the lab more often than this person over here. But if you want to maintain and keep this job and get this paycheck, okay, you're going to have to do the same level of work. If you don't, then I have to fire you and replace you with somebody else. And they really don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear that. Everybody wants to start from an A and work down. They don't realize that if you just turn in the minimum of what you have to do, that's really a C. And you have to build up from there. You have to earn the B and the A. So it's a very different kind of situation. And I see that too coming from lower grades. My daughter's in middle school right now, and I see the same kind of thing developing there about a lack of understanding of what is minimal effort and what is excellent effort.
The students who come in, they're getting an associate's degree in your program, or it's, you're now, students who come through
Well, I teach both. I teach the associate
associates.
and the bachelor degree students.
Okay, what's the bachelor degree program called?
Well, I teach different ones. I interact also with I get kids from all over the business and technology
Okay.
division. So I get them from the marketing group. I also get them from textiles, and I get them from manufacturing management or production management apparel. So I get exposed to all different groups.
And have you come in contact with the graduates, what they're doing these days?
A lot of our graduates end up working for some of the companies that we do here, as well as manufacturers. So between different trade shows, professional organizations, industry groups, and also advisory things, I run into a lot of the students all different places, or they know to call back up because some of the resources that we have here, they still need to learn more about. So now they're trying to get their companies to institute some kind of training relationship between us and them so they can come back in and pick up some additional things that they need to know, and also people that work at their company need to know because it's new technology.
Does that operate through the seminars program? You run seminars?
Every creative way that we can impart training and education, we are looking at. So through the seminars department, distance learning, user groups that are sponsored by different industry vendors, anything that's reasonable, we try to do.
Including conferences here.
Conferences, We've held conferences where we've had 125 manufacturers here. We have another one coming next week where there'll be another 45 companies there. But what we have done is, it's an interesting thing in this area. Companies don't want to come and listen to a college instructor teach them about the particular software or hardware or quick response technologies. They want to have fellow professionals. So what we're doing, all of our seminars and stuff, is in joint cooperation with other groups. And then for the basic core training, they can come in here and we'll do workshops for them on how to use the software, how to work with different things. But when they come to a seminar session and they're paying $300, $400 for a session, what they want to hear is a person who also got 2,000 orders from JCPenney last week and wasn't able to download them into their computer. What did you do? Okay. Well, we at FIT as an instructor are not going to have that experience. So what we do is provide the framework and facilitate getting these people together and make sure that the topics that are being discussed are relevant and what's happening. But we also have to look at which things are best presented by who, and that's what we're trying to do.
What are some future plans that you want to include? Okay. Can I just ask one question? I'm interested. How do you see FIT in its role in acting as a vehicle for upward mobility for the students who come here? Do you see it as...
Yeah, I think they walk off with skills that they can use in the workplace.
You've seen students who've come from rather humble backgrounds kind of gain jobs that they would never have had as a result of...
Absolutely. I look forward to using more. We've started a student user group down here specifically for that purpose, to have students helping other students to also be better prepared and when they leave here. But remember, again, it's continuous learning. So we expect to see them back over and over again.
Okay, thank you very much. And,
We didn't catch her wood, but
it was terrific.
Good.
To me, it was fascinating.